Welcome to Nerdaties. Bitches.
No topic too absurd, no statement too asinine, no question too interesting. That's right, it's a Nerdaties interview show. We had a little time off interviews, but we got a fun one today. I, as ever, am Mike. The other guy.
I am Justin.
And producer ordinaire. I'm not going to get extraordinaire this week.
Oh, well, I'd like to be an extraordinaire. I'm Joe.
Earn it. Earn extraordinaire.
I am.
Say it, Joe. You got something to say?
Yeah, I'm aboard a starship right now.
Cute, Joe.
Our guest tonight is Braxton Cosby. Braxton Cosby, DPT.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, sir. What have you been working on lately?
Thanks for having me on the show, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, just kind of introduce myself to your audience. I'm the CEO of Cosby Media Productions. We're a small press company out of Atlanta. We've published over 30 authors with 60 titles in ebook, paperback, and audiobook formats. I'm also an author myself. I've written over 20 novels with a couple of releases that just came out. That'll be coming out also in the next year. I've also worked on my comic scripts as well with some fellow authors who we've already published through our comic imprint, Star Child Comics. So we consider ourselves a hybrid conglomerate of publishing, where we actually publish our stories in both novels and comics, and they complement each other. You know, you may start off reading one story in the novel, and it will carry over into the comic, and vice versa. We may start off in the comic and carry it over to a novel as well. So we kind of like to mix it up to give audiences a different variation of storytelling, whatever they prefer. And our hope is that after they maybe read the novel, they'll get into comics if they weren't really that much into comics. And if they read the comic, then they may want to dive back into the novel to get a richer brand of storytelling.
Sweet. Now, when characters and stories are designed for two different mediums, or for one medium and then adapted to another, when you're writing, I'm guessing you wrote them like novel form first to try and lay them out, and then did comics. When you're transitioning like that, do you already have designs in mind to translate to comic form, or do you see them as like two separate things where it can be a bit more exaggerated in comics?
Right. Well, we started off just in publishing back in 2014. And right around COVID, we were going to conventions, and we go to about 6 or 8 conventions a year. And things were kind of slowing down. We were like, hey, what can we do now to kind of re-inject some excitement into our stories? And I sat with about 4 other authors from our novels of our superhero series, the Cosby Media Productions dedicated superhero series, this world that we built with 6 different authors and 18 novels. And we said, how do we add to that? And we decided, like, hey, let's jump in and try to do comics. Maybe we'll tell a different story. And the authors were like, well, are we going to retell our novels as comic books? That was the main question. I said, no. I said, we need to go forward, guys. Whatever you're doing, think about your next iteration and make it a comic book so it works right into your storyline. So obviously, we've created these heroes and villains, created these worlds. So in the writings, people will be able to imagine these characters in their head. But now we gave them an opportunity to actually see what we saw when we were creating them in the comic book form. So, the novels that we write, we normally would put the characters on the cover so you would kind of get an idea of what they look like anyway. But now to put them in action in these great scenes and set pieces of all this drama through the comic book and the magic of storytelling and the panels and the pages really was a huge focus. And I said, hey, make sure you have fun with it, because now this is the opportunity for you to finally show everybody all the thrills and spills of your story without a lot of the storytelling. So that's really how it was. The evolution was kind of learning the game of writing comic scripts, because the authors all wrote their own comic scripts as well as myself, and then making sure that adapted from the same style of storytelling that we were doing in the novels, so that you didn't lose anything. It didn't feel like this huge jump, like, hey, that's kind of different. It was just the big action pieces. So I felt like with all those first issue comics, we had Bark, Power Struggle from Daniel Payton from his Bark series. He got a 3-book series. We had Menzuo, War at Home from Keyshawn Dodds from his Menzuo series. That's a 4-book series. We had Kaio Champion with his Majesties of Canaan comic book, and that was a third book in the series. They have the 2-book series for the Majesties of Canaan, and you had Lawrence St. John with his the series is called. I always get the Metatron series. He had his comic book, and that was, I think, Terror at the Track. That was part of his 4-book series of Metatron, and then you had my series, which was the Cape Hellfire, which continued from the first 2 novels that I had, which was the Cape and Cape Overdrive.
So there's a lot of stuff to keep in your head. I would have stumbled a lot more. It's interesting. A lot of companies who already had something set up would say, you know what, the easy route, the smart route is just adapt. We have that content and then spend this time building more content to back it up, to build off. I can only think of 2 reasons you wouldn't. You feel it's cheap to do that, or you're just bored and want to move forward. You say it's 50-50 or more of one or the other?
I don't know about board. I just think that, in the publishing industry, you have to do some things to set yourself apart, especially when you're at those tables. I'm sure you guys have been to conventions before. You walk up to somebody's table, it's like, why would I buy your stuff when I'm already a big fan of Thor and Spider-Man and DC stuff? We presented at conventions too. We have our own book, and being on both sides of the table, you understand that. Why should you buy this thing from me? Absolutely. And so our thing is, hey, we're a hybrid publisher. We've created this whole superhero universe. You dive in, you get the rich storytelling in the novels, you get the action stuff in the comics, and so people buy into that. They're like, oh man, that's really a dope idea. So I didn't want to recreate the wheel. I didn't want to grind what we've already put all this work into. Like I said, these novels have been out. These novel series started since 2014. 6 years, 10 years now removed. We want comics. We want people to have something new. So, and what we do in each one of the comics is at the end of the book, the comic book, we give you a QR code and we show you the copies, the covers of the novels. So it's like, hey, want to dive in? Jump back in and grab these. So people go, oh, okay, man, I finished that. And if we intrigued you just enough, we're really confident that you'll want to go back and at least try one of the books just to see if the story grabs you,
Very mogul. How many cons have you? Because we've gone to a lot of cons over the years, but sporadically.
Right.
Both sides of the table. Which do you enjoy more?
What, conventions?
Yeah. Do you enjoy presenting more or walking around more?
Absolutely, I'm a presenter. Presenting at the conventions, talking to people. Like you said that DPT at the end. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. So I've worked in physical therapy over 20 years. I've done presentations, 8-hour seminars. I've done all of that. I've done speaking. So I really love the challenge of getting in there, engaging with audiences and trying to give them information. So being a learner myself, this whole process of writing, since writing novels, obviously since 2011, and now getting into comics. I've also written scripts and screenplays. There is a format. There is a structure to the gold standard of writing, which is 3-act structure. And so my novels have it, my scripts have it, and the challenge of writing a comic book and cramming 3-act structure is a huge undertaking. But I feel like if you do it and you can pull it off, you can really give the reader and the audiences exactly what they need without missing a beat on those pages. And those panels are important, man. You only get 5 to 7 panels on a page. There are no throwaways. They all matter. And when you're writing a comic script, that little section is your story. You become the director, the assistant director, the director of photography. You become everybody when you're writing those panels. And it's so important to give exactly what's necessary and throw away the stuff that's not, because you only capture somebody's attention for that one page. And if I'm not intrigued on that page, I'm probably not going to read the next page, So I definitely love getting out there. And my presentations have been on the anatomy of the villain, transcribing novels into comics, because that was a huge undertaking for me, and talking about 3-act structure, just really teaching audiences. And there's a lot of people in there who are just, hey, I'm starting with my first novel, what do I do? So we talk about outlines and bounce ideas. So I love engaging, but also at the convention, I'm also vending as well. So I take a moment to step away from the vending table where we're selling some of our items, get to the panel, talk to people, and then they come back because they're intrigued with what I was talking about and say, hey, I'm really interested in that story. Can I pick that one up,
So you, beyond the the fiction. You've also written a health book, right?
Yes.
Specifically for PT?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a holistic. It was called Fat Free for Life: 13 Principles of Weight Loss and Ultimate Health, and I didn't want to write just a health book. I didn't write just an exercise book. I wanted to write a book that talked about the three aspects of health: spiritual, the physical, and of course the personal. Really talks about some of my personal experiences that I've had. Also, we're working with patients over 20 years. I talk about the spiritual aspect of what God says about those principles and how you can apply that to your life. And I also talk about just the science behind it. You know, if you do this is going to happen. So I really felt like with each one of those principles, it was a chapter, and it was so comprehensive. I said, man, I want to take all my experience and everything I've learned in physical therapy and try to cram it into a book, along with some of my personal testimony stuff that I thought would be really powerful and help people just be encouraged to go out there and live the best life they can, the healthiest life that they can.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting dichotomy, because you have all this kind of fantasy narrative stuff over here. Then, I'm going to do something a bit more clinical. Is writing something a bit more clinical dry, or does it ever get, like, not to say boring, but a bit, you get in the weeds compared to something where you can let your imagination fly?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the key is when you're doing things like that, I keep it really evidence-based. I mean, that was all part of our learning. Physical therapists, everything is evidence-based. You don't do it unless it's been proven, and that was something drilled into us through PT school, my master's and my doctorate. So I made the book like that. I have over 72 references, just to kind of back up the philosophy that I was coming with. So it helps out because you're kind of formulating your chapters based on all the research that you've done. So I never get like too far gone with making it more of a personal.
It's almost pre-structured by like what it is.
Absolutely. So I just come up with the idea. It might just be like the keys to exercise, and then I start to talk about all the research that talks about the techniques that I'm talking about, and then I back it up with some of my personal experiences with running track back in college and things like that, so people can kind of really have a touch point. It becomes more, I actually get this now because this guy lived through it. He's done these things, and he's got the evidence behind it, so it makes it a lot more palatable.
That's so positive.
Thank you.
Most of the images on the covers that I saw while I was doing the research had a sci-fi bend to them, but also kind of a fantasy element. Would you describe the stories one way or the other? Or do you even distinguish between the two? Because I know for me, I have a very direct line between sci-fi and fantasy. So
right. I think when it gets down to a lot of what we do, we really do feel like we're a small press publisher that really pushes fantasy and sci-fi. And, and it can be a lot of overlap, I'm not a huge fan of it really overlapping. I like to kind of keep things specific, but a lot of authors do. When it comes to superhero fiction, I think we really have skewed our storytelling more fantasy because of the worlds that we build and the type of characters we have and the narratives that are in there. We don't have a lot of technology other than just the superheroes themselves. The science fiction, the hardcore science fiction, like my Bounty Hunter series, Steel Rain, like the book from Daniel Payton, his Earth's Last Starship, and he has the Earth's Last Starfleet as the follow-up science fiction story. I think those guys are really hardcore sci-fi, where you get a nice blend of maybe the action bounty hunter elements, something you might see in like a Star Wars film in mine. I was a real big fan of The Expanse as well, so I really have the technical jargon to go along with it. I think it kind of helps drive the narrative, but you might get something more of a feel of a Star Trek with Daniel Payton's Earth's Last Starfleet. And so you'll get that kind of a feel. So we've kind of made those, we try to drew the line to make sure that, hey, we're talking about more tech, more science fiction weapons and settings and things like that. We kept it really sci-fi on this side. And the fantasy was like, hey, run with it, man, because we got dragons, we got superheroes, we have magicians, we have all that stuff. We even have modern day urban fantasy that goes with that. We have dystopian fiction with my story Broken. With zombies and all that, so we have that stuff, but it's more of fantasy versus the sci-fi. And when people go to the website, they'll see that. I click on sci-fi, I see all the sci-fi. I click on fantasy, I see all the fantasy that we offer.
That's kind of the beauty with, I think, fantasy over sci-fi. You can just do whatever. You don't have to do as much research.
Right.
Then ask the most important question of the night.
Oh, I'm not ready for that one yet.
You're not? Oh, you have another one?
We got time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That one goes towards the end.
All right.
So, you got into the world of health and medicine, and it's a very, like, regimented area, right? But, like, when you're talking about your books and everything, I see that spark. How deep, how far back does that spark go? What was your go-to growing up? Because I feel it. Like, I could see it in you that
Absolutely.
you got that creative bug.
Yeah. If I had to drop anchor on where it all started for me was Fahrenheit 451.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That was my first sci-fi novel that I was like, man, I kind of get this. I like this, you know? And I think the thing about science fiction that I really love is that when you really get to the good science fiction stories, we really skip over the things that limit us as a people now. So it's not about race, ethnicity, gender, and all of that. It's just, you just got great stories. You know, we got bigger fish to fry. There's an invasion of our planet. Nobody gets caught up in all that other minutia in storytelling when it comes to science fiction. So I feel like that it's just an open playground, you know? So all those sci-fi stories that I know and love, like I tell people all the time, if you really love science fiction, if you're a really, really huge fan, it starts with a great story, wonderful characters, and there's a hot chick in there. You know, like every time.
Usually,
you got 7 of 9 in Star Trek. You know, you've got to have those characters and that hot chick that kind of makes you go like, okay, let me keep looking at this. Because they know their fan base, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I was going to argue, but like bring up Twilight Zone from like the 50s and 60s, but there was always a beautiful woman in like
It
every
has to be. It exists. I mean, if you look at all the stuff that you've ever liked in science fiction, there is a hot chick. It has to happen. If it doesn't have one, it's probably not a good show.
They really weren't trying. If you're not trying to get my attention, at least with a piece of ass, come on. You don't really want to look.
I mean, listen, I loved Farscape. Like, Farscape blew me away. Like, back then, like, we had cable, but we didn't have these huge networks. There was no streaming or anything. When Farscape came out, I was like, Claudia Black was amazing, you know? And I just looked at the show. I was just so impressed with what Jim Henson had done with that, you know? And so, yeah, if you just look at it, just think about your favorite sci-fi show. You have a hot chick in there somewhere.
Like, Princess Leia eventually became hot. She started pretty.
Right.
Put her in that gold bikini. Then it was kind of that first one where you go, oh.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, she's a lady. Not she's just a lady. She's a woman.
Absolutely.
That's also Star Trek in general. Everything.
Every season had a hot chick. I mean, even when they did the Enterprise, you know, that one Vulcan, she was hot as I don't know what, you know. Yeah. So yeah, they do it. They know what the format is.
Except for like the first season, The Next Generation, where the women were in slacks and the men were in like dresses. The men had like
we don't talk about the first season.
It was literally you could see the bottom of sack. You could see a lot more than you wanted to on the outfits. And
I think they were throwing that out there. They were throwing it out there to see if they flipped the script, how it would unfold, and it didn't work that well, so they went back to the hot stuff.
They were testing, like, all right, now not everybody's going to be wearing, like, skirts now, but, like, the women's going to be extra tight. Fine.
Right.
Joe.
So, I know you've done the novels, and you're doing the comics. Do you see yourself transitioning to any other medias, like animation, television, film?
Yeah, like I said, I've written scripts. I've gotten two short films produced. One was based off a superhero that I wrote a script for, and another one I did was just like a drama. So yeah, I've actually written like my one story, Protostar. I had written that into a screenplay, and that ended up getting like the second wave of a contest. I think it was Screen 32. Like the semifinal round for scripts and things like that. So I have stuff available. I have some things I've written already, but I would love to see all of our stories kind of get there. And when we bring on new stories and from talent, that's one of our things. If we see the story and the story looks like it has legs to do something else, whether it be animation, TV, or film, we're interested because we feel like, hey, we secured the rights to that. If somebody picks it up one day out of the blue and they want to produce it, we're ready to go. And so if we just see it as a ho-hum story, we don't pick it up.
What's the name of your short film? I love independent films. I'm a big indie guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go on Amazon Triumphant, you can find Triumphant on there. That was a short film that I wrote the script for.
Okay.
Executive produced it as well too. Yeah.
Oh, we got the EP cred. Nice.
Yeah.
Gotta have the written, directed, and EP. If they're not going to give you at least the EP credit in there, they didn't want you to.
Besides sci-fi, what's our other stuff we like to geek out about?
I mean, there is nothing else but sci-fi. I mean, I hate to say it, but you know, I'm really just into good stories. Honestly, like, you know, something like Game of Thrones to me is the greatest TV show of all time. You know,
Except
and a lot
for
of people
that
are like
last
really
season.
picky. Yeah, see, and I want to say a lot of people get picky on the last season, but again, if we separate the season from the book, I don't think you're as disappointed as you may think on the surface. You know what I mean?
I am one of the people that, to this day, still defend it and say it's not as bad as everybody thinks it is.
Right.
But
I
you have to use the phrase "it's not as bad." That's a problem.
Because that's the problem with fans and the internet. It's just like,
Absolutely.
we saw it, we process it for 5 seconds, quick, everybody grab the torches and the pitchforks.
Right.
It wasn't what we wanted. It's not what I had in my head.
Right.
So we have to hate it. But when you because my wife had never watched it, and I found this out. We've been together for 8 years. I found this out last year. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, well, sit down. So we went through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was my second viewing of the entire series, nonstop. I was like, it's really not, it's not that fucking bad.
Yeah, I agree.
And because she watched it all together without having any kind of season breaks, she was also like, I didn't think it was that bad. She's like, I heard everybody hated it. And I was like, yeah, because we waited so goddamn long.
That's what did it.
Yep.
That 500 days did it. That's what really set the tone. And people were like, it's got to be amazing. And then they come back and it's like, that was only a 7 out of 10. Everything else was 10 out of 10. That's the problem,
Right.
And, yeah.
Now, House of Dragons, though, I have a little bit of an issue with because I still can't like anybody on that show.
You can't connect with them, huh?
There's no one likable. Everybody on that show is just like, die already.
Right. It's true.
What would you say your top 5 fandoms are? That's one we like to throw out, like top 5s.
Okay, I'm gonna go here. I don't know. I mean, you guys look like you might be around my age, but I'm gonna go deep here. Number 1 fandom to me is Robotech.
Oh,
Huge Robotech fan.
my man.
Right. Obviously, we can't skip over Transformers. Love Transformers.
Did you
It's
watch?
kind of a lateral move there, but yeah.
Have you watched?
acceptable.
Have you watched Transformers 1 yet?
No, I have not. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a little afraid to watch it.
No. So was I.
Is it okay? Is it good?
The best Transformers thing you'll watch in a long time.
Okay, because I'm gonna be honest. Chris Hemsworth, it really hurt me. I wasn't
No, it
used to
does.
the voice.
It does.
Yeah, and I felt like that was like a money grab. Like, let's put him in. And I'm like, God, he's not even trying to sound like Optimus Prime. But okay,
He
you
does
say it's good. I'll check it out
by the end.
by the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a reason that he sounds the way he does in the trailer, and then when you get to the end of the movie and stuff happens, you're just like,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll go with that. I gotta say, let me see, 5. Obviously, Star Wars.
All right,
Star
cool.
Wars is great.
I was afraid you wouldn't. Not to pressure anybody into anything.
Yeah.
But, like, I hope.
Star Wars is amazing. You put the Ninja Turtles up there.
Yeah, I've redone our logo in a lot of different ways. That's an old school favorite. I don't know if it would still make my top 5 these days.
No, it won't. Ninja Turtles won't make my top 5. But right now, I'm cooking with Transformers, Robotech, Star Wars. I'm gonna move a little bit forward here, and I'll probably say I did love The Walking Dead. I was a huge Walking Dead fan. And then if I was to close it up, let me see, go fantasy. I would go Lord of the Rings.
there you go.
Good amount of overlap in there. Yeah.
Because I'm a D&D fan, so I mean, it all works.
It's good that most of the interviews we do, it's good to know we're getting a lot of like-minded people, but with enough variation in there.
Right.
No one's thrown out a Robotech yet that I know of.
Okay.
I fucking love it, though.
Almost everyone throws out a Dragon Ball, and I have to sit here and listen to them. And listen to him get all hot and bothered.
I'm like the only anime fan in the group, and it hurts me most of the time, but when we get interviews, a lot of the people lately have been like, I love anime. And I'm like, oh, let's talk, because no one ever talks to me about this.
I'm an anime fan, too. I did love Dragon Ball Z. I was a huge fan back in the day. And then I actually really started getting into Gundam now. Because if you go on Netflix, they are flooded with Gundam stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm on one of the seasons. I think it started off with 48 episodes. I'm on episode 39. I've already got the next one queued up. So I'm running through those. Those have been really good too. And then Vampire Hunter D, Akira, and Ninja Scroll, which is brilliant. So I'm into the older anime stuff.
That is great to hear. That's my era. You just dropped 3 in a row that I would still put on now.
That's right.
I tried to watch a modern anime. It's all right.
Right.
I think I'm too old for this.
Right.
There's some solid stuff.
Naruto, I'm really? A ninja?
That's
with,
the kid
on?
stuff, though.
I know.
Listen, you'd love My Hero Academia.
What I know?
Yeah, it's like the Marvel Universe in anime.
Take your word for
it. We mentioned it earlier. Now is about the time. The most important question of the interview. Thoughts on pizza?
How important is pizza in your life? It has to come up in every interview. It used to be natural, but now we just say, fuck it. Everyone needs to talk about pizza. So.
Pizza is a weekly deal in our household. Okay. It has to be eaten at least once a week.
Like it. Strong.
Favorite style? Now, I don't know if Atlanta has its own
New York style.
Okay.
I mean, New York style is the best, but, I'm in Atlanta, so people try to get close, and that's about all you can do. But New York style, in New York, walking the streets of New York, right out of a parlor with a piece of pizza in your box, eating it, that is New York style pizza. They just can't replicate that down here.
Okay.
It gets tough. I've had quite a few attempts of New York style pizza in the South, and sometimes they get pretty close. A lot of it really does have to do with the water.
Yeah.
That's the cliche up here, New Jersey, New York area. It's not going to be the same because you don't have the same water. What are you trying to do? You see in New York, the water is pizza and bread's so important that they make sure the water has got certain levels of this. And you won't understand because you're not from New York. That's the problem. It's just, your pizza's nice, but it's just not New York.
I got a feeling your other voice is the accent. That's your real voice.
Well, we're going to be doing a version of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer that we wrote. We're going to be doing it in a couple days. So one of the characters I'm playing is actually Santa Claus as done by Tony Soprano. So I've been practicing that a lot. So I got to drop into this fucking thing while I'm doing this character. It becomes stupid and ridiculous, but I got to do this.
Yeah. You nailed it.
Thank you. So we are... train's coming into the station, right? We do not have much time. But the time we had was really friggin' fun. Why did I just say fucking? Anyway,
you're censoring yourself. Why?
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, we drop C-bombs on this show all the time. I don't know. Anyway, all this stuff sounds really interesting. Definitely going to have to get into it myself. Where would you recommend someone starts?
Oh, go right to the website. Right to the website, Cosby, www.cosbymediaproductions.com. Like I said, we have everything broken up on the front page into the genres. You just click on it, you'll see some things you like. We also have tabs for Star Child Comics. You can see all of the comic book teams that we have. We have 5 teams we work with who do our art for us. Our novels, all our comics are on there. And they can just kind of follow us on social media through the website, but everything is there at the network. If they don't want to buy right from us, they can buy from Amazon. There's links to that as well.
Beautiful. The man knows how to sell.
I'm looking at it right now.
Got a social game down complete. Yeah. So we don't usually end our interview shows with the same spiel as the other episodes because that's just an opportunity for 5 people to yap. This, though, we always end an interview show with the classic Nerdaties ending in honor of my idiot brother. Fuck bye.
Fuck bye.
And he was an idiot. Anyway.
Because of the end of civilization, the Clamp Cable Network now leaves the air. We hope you have enjoyed our programming, but more importantly, we hope you have enjoyed life.